What do the coronavirus, the stock market, Nostradamus, and Maslow all have in common? Well, in this video, I'm going to connect the dots for you. This is Spiritual Actualization. I'm Rucker. I've got my green tea. Let's get into this. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've heard about COVID-19 and the newest coronavirus. You've also probably heard that the stock market is falling out of control to the point where they've literally stopped trading. What do these things have in common? Well, a lot. In fact, this is going to impact you in some ways that you might not expect. And this is not a fear-mongering video. I want you to know I'm not going to try to freak you out or make you go into panic. Although if you want to stock up on some toilet paper, I'm sorry, you're too late. It's literally all gone. But if you want to take some precautions and learn how to survive this future pandemic, then you'll want to watch to the end of this video, because what I'm telling you today is so vitally important. And I'm not overemphasizing this. I'm not just being dramatic. Like, what I'm sharing with you right now is perhaps the most important video on coronavirus you will see. And why is that? Well, it's because of what's really happening. And of course, on the surface, it looks like, yes, we've got yet another virus spiraling out of control. Yes, the stock market is crashing yet again, sending us into a recession, perhaps a depression. Yes, people are panicked, they're frightened, they're stocking up on toilet paper, water, and hand sanitizer, but not soap. Yeah, all of these things are happening. And I'm not going to lie and say you shouldn't be concerned, because you should be concerned, because these things are going to impact you personally. You may not have a ton of money in the stock market, but guess what? It's still going to impact you. You may have a secret bunker and you may be completely isolated from coronavirus. It's still going to impact you. And why is that? Because this is not about the stock market. This is not about the new virus, which, by the way, is not just the common cold. It's not just the flu. Yes, it's in the same family, but a lion is in the same family as a kitten, the house cat. I don't think you want the lion. I think you want the kitten. They're vastly different. And it's if you get bit by a snake, it's probably no big deal, right? Because we have some, I don't know what you call them, but the things they stick you with and they inject you and the venom is no longer venomous to you. Like, whatever that thing is, we have that. But if you're on an island with no medical care and you get bit by that same snake, gonna be a problem. What am I trying to say? Things matter in context. Where this is happening, how this is happening, and the fact that we don't have a solution makes this something we should absolutely be concerned about. Now, I want to explain why people are freaking out in a way we really haven't seen before. And this also ties directly to what's happening in politics at this moment and the two frontrunners for the Democratic nomination and, of course, the incumbent on the Republican side. What has happened is we have really created a new base level of need. Of course, if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, the wonderful pyramid, then you know at the bottom is physiological needs. So food and water, things like that, are at the very foundation. And if you don't have those foundational needs, then the other ones aren't of importance. Well, because most of us grew up in an environment where food and water were a given, those aren't really things that we comprehend as being foundational needs anymore. Our foundational needs are now elevated, they're higher. In fact, I often invert the pyramid and put self-actualization as the foundational need, because that's what people really are striving for, and that's what they're lacking. So that's the need that is going unfulfilled, that is driving all of the other reactions that people are having. Now, if you grew up in a suburban home with food and water and clothing, and you never had your lights cut off, you never had a fear of going without, your worldview is vastly, probably almost completely different from someone that grew up in poverty, that experienced what it's like to be hungry in the morning and at night, and the only meal they received was when they went to school. Your life is completely different, and those foundational years, those formative years, impact how you experience the world today. And if we're going to be really honest, the fact that you're a Christian or a Hindu or a Muslim is based largely on where you were born and how you were raised. I know we like to think that our religious views are our own and that we came to the truth through awakening, but the reality is most of us came to our religious views because of where we were born, who our parents are, what culture we're in. And culture is really just a common idea of survival. That's what a culture really is. So the food that you enjoy, the cultural traditions that you have are based on how people had to survive in the region of the earth you're from. That's what it really boils down to. So now when we see this virus emerging, where there is no vaccination, there's no treatment for it, and people are dying at a high rate in comparison to like the flu, which is, I believe, 0.01% or somewhere around there. It's less than 1%. And this is 3.4, according to the World Health Organization. Like, this is a big deal. And so what's happening is this prefrontal cortex of ours, the one that gives us consciousness and rationality and reasoning and all of those fancy things, right? This is now being shut down because we're going back to the basics, the survival mechanism. You have fight, you have flight, you have freeze, and you also have submit. All of these are survival mechanisms that we employ to live. Like, survival means live, right? That's pretty obvious. But the submit part is what I want to focus in on for a moment. We submit to people that make us feel safe. So an authoritarian leader literally makes us feel safe because of what they project. The strength they project makes us feel safe. Now, when other needs are not being met, it does activate this survival mechanism. It is said that what a person can be, they must be. And that is because in order for us to truly survive, we have to have a sense of contentment. We have to feel fulfilled. And this isn't just something that's nice. It's something that's necessary. So when you have that type of authoritarian leader that projects strength and says, we're going to be great again, it harkens back to when people felt safe. They may not be able to identify a particular day or year or time period, but they can identify with a feeling of safety, or an idea or an imagination of safety that they've created. I've noticed that people love unborn babies, but not so much the ones that are out that need help. I don't want to get too controversial because I want you to stay tuned and hear the full message, but think about this. It's really easy to be in love with something of your own creation. That's why people love God so much, because God is something of their creation. They can make God whatever they want it to be. And all of the good things in their lives are the result of God's goodness to them. And God favors them, and God gives them preferential treatment because they're God's favorite. Of course, this is their own working, their own imagination, because all of the bad stuff is, some traditions it's Satan, or some it's karma, or whatever that may be. They can dismiss all of the negative incidents as an enemy, and all of the positive ones become attributed to their God. And they fall deeper and deeper in love with this invisible imaginary force that is taking care of them. And I'm not trivializing the views of God, because God is real. And in future videos, we'll talk about exactly what God is. And I do also want to keep this in context that authoritarian leader almost feels that void of God. And a person can assign an attribute to that leader that person was selected by God, and therefore they deserve allegiance. Now keep in mind, fight, flight, freeze, or submit. Submitting to that leader is a form of survival. And it's not just that leader as an individual, but it's the culture that surrounds that leader. It's the community, that sense of belonging that speaks to another one of Maslow's needs. And of course, that is belonging and esteem needs. People need to feel like they belong. They need to fit in. And we're quite literally hardwired to mimic what we see. So that's why when people see others hoarding bath tissue, they too hoard bath tissue. As ridiculous as that may seem or sound to a rational person, to someone that's in this state of panic, it's the logical thing to do. They're stocking up on water and toilet paper and paper towels, so I should do the same thing. I'll skip the soap because no one's going for soap. They're going for hand sanitizer, so let me find more hand sanitizer. Oh, I can do alcohol wipes because, well, that kills germs, but I'm not going to get any soap because no one's going for soap. You see how this is all connected? What is happening is we have become so traumatized that our rational reasoning selves are literally frozen out of the picture. We're not thinking clearly. We're not making decisions based on aspiration and what is possible. We're making our decisions based on survival. We have to elect this candidate because this is the one that is going to help me to survive. Whatever that picture looks like, to you, it may be the one that's currently in office. It may be one that leans left or skews towards the middle. Whatever your candidate is, a lot of your comrades are choosing that person out of fear, out of a survival mechanism, out of the idea that this is the only way things will get better or not get worse. Both sides of this really are the same coin. People don't want to experience pain. They don't want to lose life. They don't want to give in to fear or be consumed by it. And so they choose the things they think will alleviate those problems. We're all ultimately operating from a place where we're trying to minimize pain and experience contentment or homeostasis. And so for you, you may see a particular candidate as the one that can get you what you need. And so you get into this mode where you're not rational, where it's not reasoning. You're no longer considering ideas and principles and values. You're considering an outcome. And you don't necessarily connect the fact that these principles and values and ideas are directly tied to the outcome. And that's long-range thinking, which requires an active prefrontal cortex. This is not a psychology video, though it's important to have a basic understanding of how the brain functions and works, because that's really what's driving everything that you're doing. And not just your conscious understanding, because of course you have your reptilian brain, that's brainstem, that makes your heart beat and keeps you warm, that kind of thing. Like all of these are working together, and they're systems that make us who we are, and they define how we operate as human beings. So this is not some obscure idea. Panic is real, and it's going to impact you even if you're not panicked. That's the thing we have to understand, because as I always tell you, we're connected. And what others do absolutely does have an impact on you. So as I started, I mentioned the stock market. Well, you may not be invested in it very heavily or at all. But guess what? As that plummets, it impacts you in very real ways, because those that it's affecting then tighten their reins, and they begin to respond out of fear, and they begin to make decisions based on their survival. And again, we talked about that base layer being higher. Well, their survival for them isn't necessarily food, water, shelter. Maybe their survival, their identity is wrapped up in their millions or their billions. And understand this. If we take this to a very practical level, let's say someone worked for 40 years and managed to save up $1 million in their 401k. A 20% impact to that 401k means they've gone from $1 million to $800,000. While that may still seem like a lot of money, the life you live on $1 million is very different than the life you live on $800,000. And let's say they plan to live for 20 years. Divide $800,000 by 20. What is that, like $40,000 a year? That's a lot different than if you added the extra $200,000 in, it'd take you up to $50,000. I am not a mathematician, so if my math is wrong, leave me a comment and let me know. We'll do the real numbers down in the comment section. But now let's upscale this. They're living on $40,000 or $50,000 a year for 20 years. What if this is someone that has 10 million? That's a big difference. If they lost 20%, they're down to 8 million. Well, living on 8 million over 20 years is a lot different than living on 800,000 over 20 years. And let's take this up one more level. Let's say they have 100 million. They lose 20%, they're down to 80 million. Still not the same impact. Living on 80 million over 20 years is a lot different than living on 800,000. Well, the reality is not everyone has saved up $1 million. They may have 500,000. And so 20% of that, ooh, now it starts to truly impact survival, not just luxury and things that are nice, but things like food, shelter, clothing. Can I afford an emergency? Can I pay my doctor bill? All of these things factor in. So what does this have to do with Nostradamus? Honestly, nothing. But Nostradamus, of course, is known for predicting the end of the world. And that idea of a catastrophic event ending all of humankind is deep within our collective consciousness. We all have this idea that the world can end, something, a meteor from outer space or a volcano from underneath, something can end us. And so that fear is always present and always diminishing our rational reasoning capabilities. So we do things that are not necessarily smart, also known as dumb. And I don't call people dumb. I say stuff they do dumb, stupid, idiotic. They're not idiots, but we all do some stupid stuff. So understand when that fear springs up, and of course fear is an absence of love. What is love? Love is knowing that you are everything and everything is you, right? Love is the substance of the universe. Love is a feeling of homeostasis. It's having every single need met. It's the state of perfection. That's what love is. We say that all the time. So if someone is operating in a state that lacks love, then they're lacking that feeling of contentment. They're lacking the understanding that they are everything and everything is them and they have enough. And the idea that they're enough just as they are is completely gone because they feel like they're lacking. That fear sucks out of them the feeling of self-efficacy and that things will be okay. So it creates this kind of ripple effect and it grows larger and larger and it tries to pull us down the spiral. If you watch any of the teachings on Sparrow Dynamics, you know at the base level is like the beige, which is really like a baby. Just feed me. I have no consciousness of others. Then you get up to the purple level where now, okay, I'm using this kind of clan to survive. Then you get up to red where it's violent and it's aggressive and we're going to survive and it's still individualistic. So it goes back and forth between individualistic and community orientations. Well, the same is true with Maslow if you think about it. The physiological needs, hey, food, water, that's literally just helping you. You get up to the next level of needs and it's like shelter and that sort of thing. Oh, now we're in community. And then you go up to higher and belonging. It's like community again, but it's for esteem and how I feel about myself. But then it also has the components of how others feel about me. And all of this influences how I extend myself or express myself into the world. And it's all connected. So with coronavirus, we need to take it seriously. Because as more people continue to become infected, then more people continue to die and more panic will spread. But what happens in this? You go and you are in a movie theater and someone coughs and now all of a sudden you're paranoid. Oh my gosh, they coughed. They have coronavirus. We're all gonna die. Panic. Or like me in the sauna, I was at the gym earlier and a lady sneezed 3 times. And I'm just like, ma'am, can you please leave? Like, that's what I'm thinking to myself because she's sitting there sneezing in the sauna. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're gonna give us all corona. And I like to think of myself as reasonably reasonable. Like, I think of myself that way, not always true. But for the most part, I am very level and logical. But even I am like considering, oh my gosh, she sneezed and I'm in the same space. I was a good 6 feet away from her, so that calmed me down. I'm like, well, I'm outside of the little bubble. But I still thought about it. And I still notice when people don't wash their hands. And I notice all of these things. Oh my gosh, you coughed into your hand. How dare you? Like these things impact us. And then we start treating those people in a way that is not loving. It's not kind. It's not who we truly are. It's the fear self rising. It's even that ego self, because ego is all about self-preservation, right? So it's that's rising up, and then we begin to other those people. And instead of thinking, oh my gosh, maybe she has allergies, or it's just a sneeze. That happens. Sometimes you pluck a nose hair and you sneeze afterwards. Like, it's not corona, it's just you plucked a nose hair. Random example, but I think you get the point. So understand that the lady sneezing in the sauna, if I was a huge, heavy investor in the stock market, could lead me to then take away my money. Of course, we know it's tied to oil and all of that, but I could then pull my money out of the stock market, causing it to diminish, of course, in value. And then that causes others to do it. And then businesses start to lay off, and the cycle continues. And think about this. I conduct weddings. I'm a wedding officiant, and I'm a darn good one. I'm actually the best in the business. But what happens when the conventions are canceled here in Las Vegas, where I live? Well, my wedding business goes down because people were coming to the convention, planning to get married as part of that. Now they don't have that business trip, so they can't pay for their wedding. Like, all of this is connected. And then now I can't come to you on YouTube because my internet got cut off because I don't have any money because I didn't get paid for doing weddings. See how this all cycles together? I mean, I kind of went all over the place with that, but I do want you to understand how it's connected. And let's make this even more real. Think about the single mother that's a waitress. And what happens if you don't show up to her restaurant and leave her a tip? She can't pay her bills. She panics. What happens if she does get sick and she has a little sniffle or cold or the first symptoms, and she knows, I probably shouldn't go to work, but if I don't go to work, I can't feed my kids? Well, she's going to go to work, and she's going to touch your plate and your fork, and she's going to give you corona. Why? Because she doesn't have paid time off, because she doesn't have health care coverage. So that then ties into not just the outcome, which you think is, I got to get my candidate elected, but it goes into the process of their principles, their values, their platform. What do they stand for? What are they going to fight every day to make sure we get? It all goes together. Or the person that's crushed by student loans. Think about them. Are they really going to risk their job if they're sick? Probably not. Because keep in mind, corporate culture says you need to be at work. We fix it, get better, but you need to be at work. Or you need to work from home, or if you have a kind of progressive company, work from home. But you really need to be resting and allowing your body to recover from this virus. But you can't, because you got to work, because you got to pay your bills, because you got to pay your student loans, which are in tons of debt because universities have exponentially increased their tuition cost. I mean, 20 years ago, you go to school for a couple thousand. Now it's like 20,000, 40,000, 100,000. It's all connected. And this end of the world kind of embedded idea that exists within our collective consciousness, again, kind of talking about Nostradamus or revelation in the Bible and some other things people left behind, those kind of things. All of this works together to literally control us. And that's why it's so important that you take time to get centered. That's why it's so important that you step back from it all. You allow yourself to tune to the frequency of love, and you tune in so heavy, lock that dial so that you stay reasonable, so that you don't panic, so that you don't make decisions that, while they may seem to benefit you right now, they're actually going to harm you in the long run. Stocking up on toilet paper is not going to help you. The virus does not make you have diarrhea. And if you have diarrhea where you need 100 rolls of toilet paper, then you don't need to be at home. You need to be in the hospital. Like, that's the truth of the matter. But you're taking things from others that just, this Saturday I went grocery shopping, and guess what? No toilet paper. Thankfully, I bought some last week, but if I had needed it, like just part of my regular schedule, what am I doing? I gotta use the newspaper, and that's not comfortable. So, or think about the person that has diabetes or another chronic illness or disease. Like, they may have to give themselves shots, but there are no alcohol pads because you took them all because you're afraid of germs on your hand when you can really just wash with soap. So now you've impacted them, and now they're infected with not only corona, but now they've got this infection from not being sanitary when they're using their needles. And now they're in the hospital, but there are no beds because you got people with corona in there who spread it to people at their job, who spread it to others. You see how this just gets out of control? That's why we got to tune into love. And what is the loving thing we can do right now? The loving thing we can do right now is keep a level head. The loving thing we can do right now is to recognize our needs truly are met. And because the base needs have truly been met, we need to focus on our higher needs like self-actualization. And I've got a video coming out in a couple weeks about self-transcendence. That's where we really need to be focused, because that's the only thing that will save us. The only way we will survive Corona, COVID-19, and whatever the next pandemic may be is if we focus in on transcendence. If we focus in on love, if we focus in on creating a world that works for everyone, if we focus in on living a life of compassion where our purpose is rooted in improving the quality of life for all, not just all humanity, but for all. So the koala bears in Australia and the kangaroo and all of those things that suffered so much in their fires, and then in the Amazon and those animals and your shelters locally. If we work for making the world a better place for all, particularly humanity, but all, that if that's our purpose, then we will survive. If we don't make that our purpose, then my friends, we won't be just a drop in the ocean. We won't exist. That's the harsh reality. And I don't mean that as a scare tactic at all, because the good news is the universe is moving towards love consciousness. And what we're experiencing now, really, all of this is just rumblings of a dying system. It's ending. It will not survive. This generation that is coming behind even me is a generation full of empaths and indigos and star seeds and all of these wonderful beings that are here to transform our consciousness. So I have great faith in humanity. And I know that as my great-grandparents and my grandparents, as they transition to their next stage in life, which is leaving this planet, their ideas leave with them and their fears leave with them. And things that were embedded in them as a youth, that kind of depression mentality leaves with them, that hoarding mentality, that not understanding that the planet really is connected, that leaves with them. If you think about what really created Earth Day, it was when we got off the Earth and saw it from the moon. When we discovered that, oh my gosh, wow, this is one planet. All the rivers and lakes and oceans are connected. And there are no lines of countries on the ground. You can't distinguish a country without a map. Like when we saw that higher vantage point, that's when we transformed. And we're doing that again right now with this virus. We're seeing, oh my gosh, we need to provide healthcare to everyone because one sick person can make us all sick. We need everyone to have a backup safety net. You know why people are innovative? They have a safety net. You know how people can get over anxiety and try new things? They have a freaking safety net. That's what it is. So everyone needs to have a minimum income guarantee. They need to have their minimal needs as just a right of life. That's where we're moving. That's where we're headed. And mark my words, you can call me Nostradamus, Nostra Will. I don't know. You can call me whatever you want to call me, but mark my words, we are moving towards this. Life will be beautiful. Life is beautiful. I'm grateful every day, and I focus in on the things that bring me joy. But when I say life will be beautiful, I mean life is going to be beautiful. Everyone will have healthcare. In fact, healthcare is going to become one of those things where it's not just curing sickness, it's really promoting wealth. And we're going to start doing things that don't just eliminate our symptoms of sickness, but that actually keep us healthier. And we're going to evolve into where we don't even really think about like Tylenol and antibiotics and all those things, because our lifestyles will be such where we're so healthy that our bodies just work the way they're supposed to. We'll get rid of high fructose corn syrup and we'll replace it with real sugar. Like, I know that might sound weird, like, what about, isn't sugar bad for you? No, high fructose corn syrup is what's bad for you. Real sugar is good in moderation. So I say all that to say, take heart, have no fear. We're going to get through this. We are going to survive this because your consciousness is expanding. You are raising your vibration to the point of love, and that's going to raise the vibration of others. And we're going to see whether it's through COVID-19, COVID-20, COVID-39, we are going to see consciousness transform where we recognize our connection. We recognize that it's the least of us that need the most care, and that when we lift up those that are down and out, the widows and the orphans, when we take care of them, we take care of ourselves. And And we'll get to the point where billionaires are fine, but we're also going to get to the point where we recognize if there's someone that is suffering in poverty, then being a billionaire is appalling. And I'll leave it with that. Remember, you're not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. Please be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification for special emergency videos like this one. Leave me your comments. Tell me, do you think that I'm crazy? Like, is my prediction off? Am I not Nostradamus? Like, what are your thoughts on this? How long will it take us to get to this place I've described? I'm interested in hearing from you. And what are you doing to protect yourself from COVID-19? I hope you're washing your hands, because that's what you should be doing. I love you. Love yourself. And I will see you in the next video.